Hello and welcome to T-Pac's Poker Channel. Today I'll be regaling you with highlights from my October 19 run in the $2,000 PKO tournament on America's Cardroom. It was a bumpy ride, so buckle up, folks. Okay, so the first goal is to build up your stack. So very early on I get pocket aces in early position. I do a min raise, hoping somebody will come along. Hopefully the small stack there on the button, but he folds. The big blind comes along. He's got a big stack, so he might be a source of chips for me. I pot size bet on the flop. When another spade comes out, I shove, and he gets out of the way. So not a huge bump to my stack, but a pretty good, significant addition in the early going here. So then, of course, you giveth and you taketh away. So this is a leak that I've been trying to fix. Defending my small and big blinds with junk. 6-7 of clubs is just not real good. And the problem with it is what's going to happen on the flop is what happens. It leads me into putting more chips into the pot. Now I've got a flush draw and a gutter straight draw, and I put some more chips into the pot. When it comes to the river and I haven't hit anything, I take a stab at it and donk off even more chips to his ace-king. So the only thing to do there is to build your stack back up. And again, same thing, 6-7 in the big blind. I'm trying to stop doing this, but this time it works out. But again, you see, on the flop, I get something that entices me to go along with it, but I do hit the straight on the turn and shove when he bets and he folds. So I was hoping to get his bounty there, but I didn't get it. But I finally do get my first bounty here on the very next hand. I got ace-10 in the button. This player had been raising a lot. You see I have a note there that says he's not good, so I'm figuring he might be increasing light. I shove, he calls with ace-king, so I'm dominated, but I get lucky and flop the 10. So, sometimes you just got to get lucky, folks. Now I'm starting to build up a stack. On this next hand, I get pocket aces again. So I do a min raise, hoping somebody's going to 3-bet me, and voila, I get a 3-better and a call. These guys have huge stacks, so I'm hoping they're going to get curious. I shove, but neither of them wants to go for my bounty. But I do pick up a pretty significant increase in chips there to get me close to the 400,000 mark. Now it's time to pick up bounty number 2. So in the big blind, get junk, but it folds to the button who's got a small stack. It's less than a quarter of my stack. I'm isolated. I decide to go for it with junk, and I flop the 4. Avoid the ace on the run out and get my next bounty. I was getting hot on flushes today. I usually don't do very well on them, and this was a 4-card flush draw. So I get king-8, it folds to me in middle position. I do a min raise. Only the big blind comes along, so you can see that's a common leak for a lot of people. Nothing on the flop. We both check. I get top pair with good kicker on the river, and I got a flush draw, so I decide to go for it. When the flush comes in, I do a pot bet, and he calls, and I might could have squeezed a little bit more out of him, because he also had a flush, but it's got a pretty good size win there and gets me over 500,000 chips. Now, sometimes you win with the big hand, sometimes you lose. I get ace-king in an early position, do a min raise, it folds back to the big blind, he calls. Again, this is a common theme, 2-4-3 on the flop. I'm a little leery of that flop, so it checks around. When the 10 comes, I decide to do a pot-size bet. He calls another 10, and that makes me leery again, so I check, and he turns over pocket 7. So he was giving me every opportunity to catch up. I don't really think that's a good way to be playing pocket 7s, but it worked out for him that time. So it's time to regain my momentum. This time I get king 7 in a late position. It folds to me. I do the old standard min raise. Folds to the big blind again, so again, a lot of people seem to have this leak. Ace, queen, 5, I decide to rep the ace, and he folds to my pot size bet. So again, I'm just, building my stack back up, hopefully putting myself in position to get another bounty. So this next hand, I get jack 10 of diamonds in an early position, do a min raise, get called by the button. And this is one of those hands that, you're going to have to play multiple streets. I flop a flush draw. He leads out for 40,000. I call. I get the flush on the turn. I check. He bets again. This time I decide to shove, not mess around, see if he's got an ace and will look me up, but he folds. But it's still a nice pot. Now, I lost with ace-king earlier. This time I'm going to win with ace-king. Get ace-king and under the gun. Again, do the standard min raise. Folds to the button. And also the big blind comes along. Flop comes an ace with 2 clubs, so you always got to be worried about the clubs. I bet, get one player out of the way. The flush draw completes itself, so I decide to check, but I don't think he's got a flush when he bets, so I shove and he gets out of the way. So another good addition to my stack size, and now I'm over 600,000. Now this hand, I didn't have anything, but I just kept going, and it eventually paid off. So again, 9-jack suited in the small blind, folds to me. I decide to do a raise, blind versus blind. He calls. I bet the ace flop. He calls. I pick up a flush draw, decide to bet again. He calls. I get nothing, and I decide to bet bigger, just in case he was chasing something, and I'm not sure what he would have been chasing there. Maybe he had a 7, and decided I might have had an ace, queen, or a 4. Either way, it works out. Sometimes you just got to fire that third barrel. So now I've dropped a few pots. My stack's down to around $500,000. Get pocket 6s on the button, decide to call, and lo and behold, get the dream flop. Now this is one where I screwed up. I accidentally hit the fold button. I had no intention of folding that hand, but this is what happens in online poker sometimes. I got excited and accidentally folded. So I got to make up for that blunder. Get ace-king in the small blind. Now this is not a leak. When I get a 3-bet from the button, I shove, hoping he's called shoving light and will want my bounty. And he's shoving way lighter than I expected with an 8-6. Nothing gets there for him or me, but my ace-king wins, and I get a massive double up, putting me over 1.2 million chips. All right, I've got ace-6 in the small blind, big stack. I decide to play this one, and look at that. Flop 3 6s, checks all around. When a 3 comes out, I'm thinking, well, you know, there's 2 hearts. Let's check it and see what happens. He bets, I shove, and he folds. Don't want to let somebody get there cheaply. So now here's a hand that I screwed up on. So again, Jack-9 in an early position, doing a limp. Probably at this stage of the tournament should have just folded this. The limp goes all the way through. Now to the big blind, small blind bets, big blind shoves. I decide to go for some bounties. Flop a 9, thinking I might be in good shape. But he's got Jack-10, and he hits the 8 for the straight. So I'm on a little bit of a side pot, but don't get the bounty. Pocket 6s again, facing a min raise and a shove after me. I decide to go for it with my huge stack, and he's got pocket 10s and flops a 10. So obviously this hand is dead. Cost me about 600,000 chips, but I'm still in good position with over 1.5 million chips heading into this hand. Ace-10 suited in the big blind. Get a min raise and a call. I just go along with it. Flop comes pretty much a dream flop. I've got the nut flush draw, got a gutter straight draw, hit the flush, decide to let them try to hang themselves. I call. Now I've got the nut flush, hoping that somebody will bet, but nobody bets. But I do end up getting my stack back over 2 million. Might could have gotten some more chips out of the Jack-Queen player there. So this hand I'm in the big blind with pocket kings. I get an under the gun, player does a min raise. So this is going to be a classic shove. I shove, everybody gets out of the way. So little pot that I pick up, nothing big. Ace-7 suited in the middle position, folds to me. I do a min raise. Player to my left calls, button calls, and the big blind calls. So this is a rare 4-way flop. The flop is pretty dry. It does check around. Now I pick up a flush draw on the turn, so I decide to lead out with a very small bet, get one caller, and lo and behold, a luck into a nut flush on the river. I shove, trying to get this guy's bounty, and he gets out of the way. But it does give me almost $3 million in chips now. Another hand in the big blind with the queen 3 suited again. This is a leak I'm needing to fix, but with 2 players in, it's pretty, pot odds are good to call. And then I flop the queen. So I check to see what will happen. The last player to act bets, I call. Get a crappy 2. I shove his bet thinking my queen might be good, and he's got pocket aces. Didn't see that one coming. So there goes almost 70% of my stack. I cut in late. I've got ace 8. He's got pocket 9s. I'm sure I shoved pre-flop, and he called and gets thrown right out. So that was a fun tournament. Ended up with 3 bounties. One I did not get video of, and it was a big one. It was a $6 bounty. So I had 3 bounties for $11.50. Finished in 39th place for $10.87, and got a total earnings of $22.37. And you can see the profit on the screen there. So that'll bring me back for more. Hope to see you soon.